Okay, good afternoon. It's really honored to be here. And this is the paper Yunhan and I collaborated. Most of the ideas we discussed together, but in the execution and wise or analytical of the data set is my idea. So I took the full responsibility for all the mistake or if you don't satisfy something. But I just want to convey a message here, which is that a lot of times it's not just the country or the decision maker doing affect people, it's how people really receive those informations. So when we just say there is discrepancy of discourses that the Chinese policymaker trying to send to the people, a lot of times we maybe look the other side, how people receive it, and which kind of message they take mostly, or for some, maybe they all receive all different spectrum of message, but they particularly focus more on maybe in a positive or negative way. So this is an assessment of what I call public diplomacy, but in fact it's something if the country not really aim to promote, but eventually leading to people have this kind of perception, it counts as well. So I should not necessarily say public diplomacy, but how people feel about China's rise. Okay. This is a little bit more methodological or focused paper, but I try to make not that methodological in my presentation here. And the reason I make a little bit more methodological is that it's really difficult to draw cross-sectional data from the the causal analysis. But here actually we have multiple ways for data. In that regard, then we can apply some statistic technique for us to draw a little bit more rigorous conclusion from the data analysis, and that will help our understanding to tease out those very, it's not really very clear because there's multiple perceptions competing each other. So what we want to actually do is to, at least from our data set, to tease out relatively which kind of factor is more important, more effective comparing to the rest. And again, I want to emphasize the data here we have is from Asian Barometer. As the director of Center for East Asia Democratic Study in National Taiwan University, we serve as Asian Barometer headquarters. We conduct data gathering for now is 15 Asian countries consecutively since 2000. So mostly like a 4 to 5 years a wave. So here we do have China rise related battery. We systematically collected since the third wave. So we now collected 3 waves of data. The latest wave we only have 4 countries, but because of that, we are able to do this pseudo-panel analysis. All right, let me just start it here. So I want to give you an outline of the presentation here. The firstly, I want to talk about the motive, and which exactly is Jeremy just mentioned, the conflict of different discourses that China actually sending to Asia Pacific and also the world. So I want to talk a little bit about the conflicting behavioral patterns. And then it goes to the research questions, and what factor matters more to recipients' perception. Here, I exclude China because, it's not Chinese people how they feel about Chinese government doing. It's all the rest of the other audiences in other Asian neighboring countries, how they think China is doing and what kind of message China is sending and how positive and negative they take on those messages. And we have several hypotheses here, and I would just elaborate it very in an intuitive way instead of a scholarly way. So first is change of foreign policy. We all know that although a lot of people mentioned since 2008 China become more aggressive, but my understanding is that they're doing it, but they don't say it until Xi Jinping in 2013 consolidated his powers as the top leaders. So if you go to China, a lot of Chinese scholars trying to competing for the credentials, saying it is me affecting our president to take on which China should be high profile to say we are going to rise and it's good for the world. So there is a concern that actually Xi is the one who decided to make it really loud voices in the international community. And also, but we also know that since Trump took presidency, and it's not at the very beginning, but at least in the November and December 2017, either in the official report from State Department, White House, or from not granting China market economy status, it's a little bit more getting tough against China through economics, and also pointed out China is a prime threat to the and also Russia to the U.S. So there are two kind of argument that either China or U.S. at different time point, 2013 or 2017, that change the basic tone of their foreign policies. And the other is hard power factors. China's then reclamation actually building up all those reefs and the islands to become like a military facilities since December 2013. And immediately of that, you can see there's a limited conflict broken out between Philippines, Vietnam versus China as well, and also U.S. official sending either in the Congress as testimony or other places, State Department issue the denial of the 9-line sovereignty claim, these kind of things. So hard power factor might affect people's perception. And also hereafter, there are a lot of talks and a lot of China's official claims that trying to competing in these issues. Then from the 3rd to the 7th, which are possible factors that people have associated with what they perceive about China. So the 3rd is globalization. One of the messages that China sending to the Asia and also the world is China was still committed to global economy and even will replace U.S. will become the leaders of the global economy comparing to Trump's position. So a lot of people really, for example, like Taiwan. I just want to give a very simple example. My major is undergraduate is business administration. I have around 40% of my classmates constantly now working in China. I mean, it doesn't have to be stated loudly, but people in Taiwan knows that what global economy means to Taiwan, and especially what role China plays, because all those multi-corporations job all moved to the Shanghai instead of staying in Taipei. So I think globalization is one thing that people perceive about China. And the other is the socioeconomic perceptions. We also find out a lot of people believe that a strong China, especially in terms of economy-wise, will benefit to their economic conditions. So, but we don't know. Sometimes people perceive as minus factors. Sometimes people will perceive as positive factors. So we just associate if people feel that China, a strong China is good for their economic benefits or opportunity, they were more supportive or at least perceive positively about China. Then also a regime evaluation. There are a lot of political science theory talking about, people do not like the system, they're unfamiliar, or in terms of very different. If you are democracy, you probably were very frightened that there is a non-democracy rise and a threat to the way of your life. So regime evaluation is one kind of factors that may at least reflect how people might like or dislike China. And then we also have liberal values. Recently, there are a lot of people talk about when China's rise, but still maintain the way they treated their citizens. Human rights, we talk about Xinjiang re-education camp, those kind of things. It will hurt China's image. Although China trying not saying it, but a lot of Western media always report it. In Taiwan, every day we can see this kind of reports. It will affect people's perception as well. Also, we have international relations. As our understanding that as an audience, people will also bandwagoning if they think that China will become the most influential countries and actually dictate a lot of things. They might bandwagoning have a little bit more positive value attitude toward China's. So it's all perception-wise in people's mind at the individual level. And we aggregate to the panel level, which a cohort level, which we form a panel by their gender, by their education, and by their age. So for each country, there will be 12 panels. We have consecutively 3 waves across different time points. So from that point, we can do some analysis to tease out which is more, matters more to people's perception. So it's methodological wise. We use what we call pseudo-panel analysis. Why is a natural experimental? Because the 3rd wave actually was conducting between 2010 and 2012. At that time, Eastern China Sea dispute has already risen, but not yet South China Sea dispute. But our 4th wave is conducted in 2014 and 2016. So at that time, the South China Sea dispute is fully undisclosed. It's revealed, and all the news media all about it. So exactly the South China Sea dispute, December 2013, is in the between of 2 waves of survey. So when we do the pseudo-panels, and we can tease out as a treatment variable to see what's the effects. And also, we have another data point, which is 2018. We have 4 countries. And so Trump's inauguration is in 2017 in January. And he adopted much more hardline policy tone, which is the end of 2017. And then regard, it become another treatment variables in terms of time variant variable at the 2017 between the fifth and the fourth wave and fifth wave data. So then is my conclusion I would elaborate. It's regarding to security threat, economic opportunity, and value conflict. All the 3 courses of the conflicting messages, and people really all receive that, and it all affect how people perceive China. Okay, so here I probably have already 10 minutes gone, but here I just want to telling you about the discourse. I don't know, maybe English audience did not perceive this, but in the 2015 and 2016 Shangri-La dialogues is held in Singapore, the deputy joint staff actually say something really rude in Chinese language. It's all airing around in Hong Kong, in Taiwan, as well as in other Chinese society. Like, I speak Chinese first. 中国和中国军队历来不怕鬼，不信邪，府里不服霸，府里不信邪，信里不信邪，绝不要指望我们会对歪理邪说、强权霸权屈服。I mean, if you actually read the English, it's not that offending. It's not that offending. But if you actually read in Chinese, it's extremely foul language to say. So the evil, the ghosts, and the evil fallacy and power hegemony. Oh, I don't know. Maybe English audience sounds is good, but how can you expect that in a formal diplomatic occasions that someone who represented China to saying this and will expect to get positive responses? So this is very hardline language, and it consecutively repeated in 2016. I didn't quote the original language, but I put it in my papers. So which means it's not like one-off aberration. It's actually Chinese, at least someone who agree with, and definitely I don't think their official have a problem with this. I actually did privately talk with their think tank how they view this message. This is our official point. And there is no yielding position. So we say it to demonstrate to the world we are really, really adamant in terms of defending our interests in this regard. So then it's apparently a problem. Then if China really focused on soft power diplomacy, why we have this kind of problem? But there are other conflicting messages as well. I mean, I have a lot of Chinese scholar friends. In mid-2017, Chinese officially forbade calling BRI a strategy. If you are academic trying to apply for the projects, but you call BRI as a strategy, you won't get passed. You won't get the money at all because it's not initiative. The way they forbade, they call it a strategy, which is they want to tone down the connotation for the strategic competitions. So BRI is totally benevolent, nothing strategic. Don't call it strategy. It's benevolent project to the world. Why they care? If they think that deputy joint staff saying this foul language would not offend people, why they care about calling strategy or initiative? I don't know. Do you think difference about initiative or strategy? So what I understand is that China as message senders, they have their own judgment about which factor matters. But in fact, it might not different. It might not be the same with the recipient think or feel, right? So that's what we wanted to tease out, which kind of a message that from recipient's point of view they think matters. All right. So from the high side, I think China might have cut down their many Shoni activities dated back to as early as 2013. But there's a qualification. Maybe the audience that China really targeted in that low Shoni activity is not international community. It's their domestic audiences. That I get it because he needs to consolidate his power, right? To consolidate his legitimacy. But I just want to say, in terms of public diplomacy, this always like countervailing efforts. All right, so I will skip those hypotheses because I just mentioned it. Methodology, I will skip it as well. I just try to give you 3 very quick, understandable graph and tables. This one is that we put all the regressors in, and then we estimate, model a prediction about the positive responses toward China's influence in Asia. And that's the result. And this is the two-wave. We only include two-wave because we have a full 12-country coverage in the two-wave data here. So the red circle, which means we found very, very significant drop in those countries from the third wave, which means in 2010 to 2012, and the 2014, 2006. In between, there's a South China Sea conflicts become really heated, and everybody knows it. So if you see the rest of the other countries, either very low like Japan, from the third wave and fourth wave, our estimated probability is 15% will have a positive perception about China's rise. It's very stable in our models. But basically, what the country had different numbers is the Philippines from 61 dropped to 44, Taiwan from 65 dropped to 51, Indonesia from 73 dropped to 59, Vietnam from 49 dropped to 29, and Malaysia from 87 dropped to 73. Those 5 countries share one common factors. They are all South China Sea dispute claimants, which they claim the sovereignty over the South China Sea. So South China Sea actually is a very, very, I would say, the counter-effective to China's public diplomacy. No matter how China is saying that it's only for their own interests, it's nothing related to offending the world. The fact is that no matter how many good words China try to deliver, when South China Sea happens, in all those countries, they have dispute over China. The perception actually down more than 10%, even 15% or more. For the rest of the other, it's all remain stable either way. So before and after the 2013, it all maintained a similar level. If we have three-way data, we do have 4 countries have three-way data, so we do the same analysis. But I got to caution you because only cover 4 countries. It's related to the common feature between those 4 countries. So I won't overgeneralize the result. But basically, we found similar pattern here is that from before and after 2013, the percentage dropped very fast, right? But right after Trump took presidency and had this much more aggressive policy toward China, actually China's perception is going rise a little bit. So if you look at Philippines from 38 to 49, you might think it's Duterte took presidency and become good relationship with China. That might count as well. But anyway, you see Taiwan from 47 to 55, from Vietnam to 18 to 33. Although it's a little bit more marginal, but it's all past the significant level, so which means that they at least bounce back a little bit after 2017. So I wouldn't try to say all the bounce back factors only related to Trump's policy that making people feel a little bit better about China. But at least we see the different time point, we see a different swing. And in this fact, Trump's policy might make China's image a little bit bounce back a little bit, right? Mongolia also 10% rise. All right, this is the regression finding, but I try to make it much easier to understand. There are only 4 factors really matters. One is South China Sea claimants, which is that 11% minus hurting China's perceptions, people perception to China. But if you look at the globalization factor, there is one factor doing more trade with other countries. If your people express they feel that they're doing trade is much good and it's the better the more, then you will see the 10% more positive how they perceive China. So economic globalization is a plus. It's a long-term effort that China trying to frame themselves and actually being received, and people agree with that. So economic opportunity is one factor that making China have a positive image among the Asian people's mind. And if we see regime evaluation is another factor that is really important. Whoever that rated China in terms of democracy as much better rating, they will view China more positively. Here is a 1 to 10 scale. So every point better, they will increase 3% of their positive perception. But actually variation won't that great, only between like 2 to 6. No one rated China 6 above, something like that, very few. In terms of US, if you rated US much more democratic, it will hurt China's positive image. So in a way, of course, people all understand US and China at the pole of the two ends. So it relatively is a kind of proxy measures for measuring how people they sided with US or they sided with China. And in that regard, people really feel that US-China present different two model, but not in literally China model. We have included China model, US model. It's consistently not explanatory. But people really feel it through the institutional preferences. If they more identify with the US system, they will rate the US system much more democratic. If they identify with Chinese system, they will rate the Chinese system more democratic. And it would systematically related to how they feel about China. So I will conclude this. So here, which is a basic story of a security threat, economic opportunity, and value conflict, as I mentioned, those four factors. But here what's happening is that when Trump challenging China by framing its rise as a threat to the world, China has little room to make concessions unless it agrees to restrict its growth and development to a level that US is comfortable with. What I'm saying is that the second, China faces a dilemma in conducting public diplomacy. On one hand, China will prove Trump's right if it would loudly acclaim its rise and show its true purpose in narrowing the gap with the US. Right? China is approaching US and they are ambitious, not good intention. But on the other hand, China will be perceived even more suspiciously if hiding its revisionist intention, if it deliberately trying to hit its rise. So which means that if China have already decided he got to rise and not being restricted by US, no matter how it did in terms of public diplomacy, it will feel there will be suspicion around. So it's very difficult for China to do public diplomacy when Trump make it publicly, loudly that we are competitors. So I say here, but I still believe that might have some strategy for China to cultivate in terms of nuanced way, subtly in their public diplomacy, which is that manage its rise in order to reduce apprehension, potential Chinese security threat. So China can continue to rise, but kind of slowing its pace a little bit if it's controllable. Trying to meet US expectation a little bit and maneuver at the range that China might accept, but might not really fully satisfy. And China should still doing something in economic opportunity to create more opportunity to win people's heart, at least in a neighboring country, or whoever believes China great in terms of globalization, then China will win much more positive the image receptions. And most important, I would see China should soften the opposition resulting from value conflict. China should considering doing some reform internally, trying to make it look good, at least to reduce apprehension and anxiety from people think China is sheer non-democracy, sheer autocracy, and sheer very brutal tourist people. So China can win more hearts doing that. Okay, I conclude here. Thank you.